By former special prosecutor Martin Amadou that they agreed to approve President Akufo-Addo's nominees in exchange for non-prosecution for taking double salaries.
There was no such thing. So those is then for anybody to say that this is what the agreement was. And let me ask you.
We hear the inside story of how the minority side came to endorse the approval of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta despite initial concerns. Plus, we tell you why the minority leader says his side failed to lose
in honor and dignity.
Did you lose in honor and dignity?
In some situations, there was no honor or dignity.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
Of office for a few months, but former special prosecutor Martin Amadou has not ceased stirring controversy. Tonight, he has left many serving and former members of parliament outraged at his latest allegations that they escaped criminal prosecution for taking salaries they did not deserve, only because of a deal to approve the president's ministerial nominees. Martin Amadou had also alleged that the main opposition party, the NDC, had also done a deal to have all its affiliated road contractors paid. In exchange, the party got its MPs to simply rubber stamp the president's nominees. Well, some of the MPs who were initially charged over the double salary claims are speaking out in the wake of the latest allegations. We'll hear from them shortly. But first, let me sum up for you the allegations by Martin Amadou. First, he alleges that the Attorney General, former Attorney General, Gloria Akufu, never referred the double salary case to him for further investigation or prosecution, and that he had nothing to do with it. In fact, if you read that particular story, there is no direct attribution to the current Attorney General. It was a newspaper's own. Our claims indicates that the Attorney General, that is the former Attorney General Gloria Akufu, and the Director of Public Prosecutions had both perused the docket relating to the double salary allegations and had come to the conclusion that the charges be filed against some of the suspects for prosecution. And these suspects were NDC MPs, some of them former. Now, he also claims that the Attorney General was then instructed not to do so by the President. And then he alleges that this was unconstitutionally done to usurp the investigatory, prosecutorial, the constitutional authority of the Attorney General on grounds of political expediency of having the suspects agreeable to play ball in Parliament for the government. Third, that he also alleges now that there was one former Minister of Finance, an NDC former Minister of Finance, who on behalf of instructing NDC in Parliament to approve all the ministerial nominees of the government, including the minister who was yet to supply further and better particulars to the Appointments Committee for consideration before his approval or disapproval by the committee and by Parliament. And this MP, we know it to be they came to approve his nomination, although there were issues that he had raised with him. We'll get into that very shortly. Finally, still summing up for you Martin Amadou's allegations. He says that there was also a further agreement led by the NDC that led to some NDC contractors being paid for the first time for work done prior to 7th January 2017 before the ministerial approvals were made as a show of good faith to the NDC. So two deals done. One, pay our contractors, and second, he alleges that in essence let our members off the hook who had been accused of taking double salary. The key question: so how did he come by this information? Martin Amadou says in this rejoinder that he's written, he calls it so, and that he had informants and agents within the executive and parliamentary NDC. And that they are asserting that the MP's double salary cases and other pending criminal cases involving some NDC members of parliament formed part of the negotiation. So that's where he got this information from agents and informants within the executive and in parliament among the NDC ranks. Okay, so that is in sum his allegation against the MPs, the party, the NDC, the government, the president. Well, today we are hearing from some of these NDC MPs charged over the double salary claims. ABA Fuseni, who is the MP for Sanerugu in the northern region, is challenging Mr. Amidu to back his allegations with evidence. He says nothing of that sort happened.
Where is the evidence? Who the proof of an allegation lies in the person against whom it is made, or is the one who alleges who must prove? Is there any burden of proof on anybody in the NDC about this matter? They are making an allegation, and I'm telling you that no such thing existed. No such negotiation took place for anybody to say that this is what the agreement was. And let me ask you, number one, was there a salary for there to even be a double salary?
At the time, we told that they were giving salaries. I mean, MPs were ministers.
As at the time that allegation was made, there was no salary. No appointee of President Mahama and member of parliament was paid a salary. Members who are part of the Article 171 office holders. A red herring. Okay.
So you are challenging Martin Amidu to
I
show
am telling you that it was a
allegation.
red herring. And number two, well, if Mr. Martin Amidu, as special prosecutor, was privy to this matter, I'm sure you are aware of the powers that the special prosecutor is clothed with. That where there are acts of corruption and others, he can go into those investigations without.
Yeah, but he said he did that. I mean, there was clear that he should be prosecuted.
Yeah, so he should have
then directed the Attorney General not to prosecute.
No, he is saying that he as special prosecutor is clothed with powers to prosecute without direction from the Attorney General. He didn't need the president's authority to go and prosecute. He did it on his own. If he was convinced that there was a special prosecutor on those occasions work under the direction of the president or the Attorney General, he could have done that. Why didn't he do that? So look, my brother, I've said it clearly that if you can't carry your head load, you don't blame your head part. Okay, so this banter between he and the Attorney General is a demonstrable act of incompetence. They can share it among themselves. From up initio, even when the MPP sought to make it up, because at that time they were looking for acts of corruption to stick. And take note, this particular thing they are talking about happened under President Kufuor. Okay, even as they were talking, the majority leader suffered a similar thing. Chairman Sabosu, Mr. Speaker, the outgone speaker, his name was also brought in on that.
Michael Quay.
So why is it an NDC matter? Why is it an NDC matter if it has to be? So that tells you clearly that it was led by political motives to find something to stick against President Mahama and his government on issues of corruption, which they were not getting.
So that is ABA Fuseni there, and that is his case. He's one of those who were lined up and accused of taking double salaries. His position, you just heard there. And so this all comes down to the approval process when it comes to the president's ministerial nominees. We know the Finance Minister, Kanu Foriata, which many believe led to the resignation of MP for North Tong, Samuel Okudeto-Ablakwa, from the Appointments Committee. So what really happened? We will hear the real story shortly from the minority leader himself, Harun Edrisu, who spoke exclusively to me on PM Express last night. But first, I want to bring in right now Mr. Inusa Fuseni. Thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you, Evans. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm pretty sure that either you've heard or read Martin Amidu's allegations, considering the fact that you were one of those also accused. I mean, there's a few your colleagues who are currently in Parliament to turn a blind eye and simply rubber stamp the president's nominees.
Well, I've read Martin Amidu's piece on what he alleges was a deal between the government and the minority MPs on the Appointments Committee. One, if you have been a member of Parliament, you will know that the Appointment Committee takes decision either on the basis of consensus or division. And whatever decision is taken at the Appointments Committee, now I had said even before the brouhaha surrounding the approval of the ministers nominated by the President for consideration of Parliament, that it would be miraculous if any minister was rejected. And I said that based on practice and convention. Now, I am not aware that any deal was made between the NDC MPs in the approval process to approve the ministerial nominees of the president in lieu for the drop of the case. The case itself was investigated in 2017 and 2018 after the preliminary statements were made, nobody was cautioned on any offense by the investigating authorities.
You were not charged at all?
At all. It's clearly a fairy tale. I mean, it cannot be supported by the evidence that was produced before the investigative authorities, cannot be supported by the turn of events, because the approval of the ministers came 3 years after they was investigated 3 years ago, and the approval of ministers nominated in the second term of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
But was the case dropped completely?
Well, as is the case with criminal cases, they will get back to us. And there are many cases in Ghana where statements are taken from accused persons and the case is never proceeded on. The case might be proceeded on because time does not run against the commission of an offense. Now, this is the case of the prosecution, or is the case of Matamidu, that this is a clear case of breach of public office, duties of public office. Now, it's the case of the members of parliament who were accused of taking double salary, that no double salary was taken in the first place, technically, because there was no salary at the time that the payments were done. A salary of members of parliament of the 7th parliament was fixed consequent upon then to determine the emoluments and privileges of members of parliament. This was only when the salaries of members of parliament were established. And so you cannot by any stretch of imagination say that until the establishment of the salary of members of parliament, those members of parliament were taking double salary, because there was no salary in the first place. There was payment on account. Now, and has always been the case that this is an administrative practice. If your employer overpays you, it doesn't send you to court to take back the money he has overpaid you. He asks for a refund or and a discussion on how that payment can be done. And it is not the case that the parties who were accused of taking double salary connived or conspired with the paying officers to pay them. You will have to establish a criminal intent. After all, stealing is not a strict liability offense.
I mean, you left Parliament. You were in Parliament until the 7th of January midnight. As late as that, was there any attempt to get in touch with you by the investigators to indicate that this issue was still live?
I say the only time I went to the investigators was with authorities and assist them in the investigation of a case. I was not alone. I was in the company of other members of parliament. And all of us went to the police CID headquarters. I remember vividly that after I gave a statement to the police, I made a statement to your network, Joy FM. And so, since that time, nobody, 2017, and I know that when the police take a statement from you, they continue with their investigation, and when the prima facie case has been established, they charge you with the offense and take a caution statement. The police is yet to come to me with a charge sheet, with a charge statement and a caution statement taken from me.
So in other words, as far as you're concerned, as somebody who was originally accused, over you or your members to demand some favors?
As far as I'm concerned, you cannot by any stretch of imagination, even if you have been endowed with a wizardry of Oz, to establish a link. It's so far-fetched. It's so far apart.
I mean,
and after 2017, there were no discussions as to the case that was being investigated by the police. An agreement made to suspend discussions on the case until Nana Akufo-Addo won the elections for his ministers to be averted. There was no such discussion.
I mean,
and so how can you establish a link? I fail to see how a link of that nature can be established. And how can you even accuse the government of criminal conspiracy to agree to act together for the purposes of committing a crime or shielding a crime? I mean, you cannot. I mean, you can't do that.
But here's a challenge. This is Martin Amadou. Until very recently, was a special prosecutor. Has been an attorney general before. Has been a deputy. I mean, he is a man of no means weight in the matters of politics and the law. I mean, his words are taken pretty seriously. Why would he make these serious allegations even if he has no?
Well, clearly, yes, I agree. I've known Martin Amadou since I was a young boy in Tamale. I've known him since I came into politics. I worked closely with him when he was Attorney General and I was chairman of the Constitutional League, member of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. I have no doubt in his appreciation of the law. Indeed, when he was the Deputy Attorney General at the Office of Attorney General, I was at the law school struggling to graduate to be called to the bar as a lawyer. So I have no doubt in his capacity, and he knows the rules against hearsay.
Mr. Fuseni, I'm grateful that you joined us and that with your thoughts on these serious allegations thrown out today by former Special Prosecutor Martin Amadou. Well, let's return to the real fundamental issue which Martin Amadou relies on to make his allegations, which is public knowledge that it was very controversial and the NDC side took a battering not only from among its own members in the House, but among the grassroots who were very unhappy with the way the minority MPs had simply stood by and watched some of the nominee course was approved. That was so controversial that, as it has now been suggested, may have caused a very prominent member on the appointments committee on the NDC side, Samuel Kuditu Ablakwa, to resign his position on that particular committee. So if it's not what Martin Amadou suggests happened, that there was a deal done and that's why the approvals were made, what then really happened? Well, on PM Express yesterday, in an exclusive interview with Harun Edrisu, who is a minority leader, he opened up for the very first time about the real story behind that controversial approval. Listen.
Approval of ministers is done after the vetting process. But this time around, for some reason, in respect of Ken Ofori-Atta, I think so, there was some sympathy in terms of his health. But arguably, what I recall was when you say conditional to what?
On the documents.
I can share what I know with you, and you can go back to the parliamentary Hansard, which will vindicate me. So before his approval, you would have noticed that the Honorable Arnaud Dompré rose to move the motion. I asked him, no, you cannot proceed with this motion because I'm further engaging with the majority leader for the Minister for Finance designate to respond to those conditional issues. Go to the Hansard. That's why Parliament is a house of record. So how could you say that we didn't demand that?
But in the end,
no, wait a minute.
You stood on your feet.
Wait a minute.
You seconded the motion.
No, wait a minute. I'm the ranking member of the Appointments Committee. So yes, in respect of Ken Ofori-Atta, the minority isolated 3 issues that we needed urgent and immediate satisfactory responses to. 1, the McKinsey contract, which is another fraudulent contract. Why would you bring in South Africans to be running GRA and running Ministry of Finance for $1.8 million a month? Those are the kind of expenditure we should discipline, not freezing people's salary as ministers. So we demanded some details on the McKinsey contract with GRA. And I simply just cannot understand why McKinsey should be engaged. I mean, Ghanaian tax experts are capable of doing what they are doing. Then 2, one of our colleagues strongly raised that we needed reconciliation to understand the Public Interest Accountability PIAC report of an outstanding 20, I may not get a figure right because I don't have the document here, of some unexplained amount that PIAC wants it accounted for, I can show you a copy of a formal correspondence from the Minister of Finance responding to that. Indeed, to quote the letter, even though I don't have it here, we're told that 7th of April, there will be engagement between the Minister of Finance and PIAC to have an understanding to work on those issues. The third issue we requested for was recruitment into the Ministry of Finance, because we hear family and friends where even public and civil servants at the ministry are not finding their feet. So we needed to understand how some of them got into the ministry. There is official communication to me prior to his approval that
So you were happy with the responses you got?
No, I'm not done yet. Then I, additionally, as minority leader, normally when the report is done, myself and the chairman will co-edit it, even though it's largely a function of chairman. But because Parliament is a transparent institution, I get to see the report. Then I insisted that I needed to know how much Bank of Ghana financed government. The very question you wanted me, this is how I could get that material evidence. So officially, all those documents were formally brought to me, satisfying that condition. Now, what you need to know is, are there material constitutional issues? Are there material criminal fraud issues? Are there material moral turpitude issues that I can hold him to? At that point in time, I didn't have enough weight of whatever information that I had.
So that is what happened, according to the minority leader, with the controversial approval of Ken Ofori-Atta were all addressed before the approval. But that's just one. There is also the first controversy surrounding the approval, controversially, of 3 nominees whose nominations were first. Haruna Iddrisu then explains in this particular case that he believes their side lost in rejecting their nominations because there were issues with some
grassroots party members, which is one of the lessons I've learned as minority leader, is to tell you in your face, Haruna, what we expected you to do, even if you are losing, lose in honor and dignity.
Did you lose in honor and dignity?
In some situations, there was no honor or dignity.
Which ones?
When you have 137 and you go and get any number below 137 for the NDC party following, that is. But Evans, it will go down in history and record, like it or not, that Haruna Iddrisu, one of Hail Haruna, Praise Haruna, he's gotten a speaker elected from his side with that miracle of 137 plus some other votes. Then the same adults go into approval of ministers. In respect of Bagbin, there was a flip favorable to me, and approval of ministers, a flip disfavorable to me. Only people who want to approve it and reprove it will not appreciate the dynamics of what we are going through. Did you get it right.
Was there failure on your part there to get your members to do what obviously you wish?
The secret ballot process is the same secret ballot process that gave birth to what we have been condemned for.
Some of your own let you down then.
I can only leave it there, but was I to follow those adults to the voting room to determine?
Did you feel let down?
Disappointed.
By those who voted?
What I consider
bribes and you were sold out. Were you?
which I have appetite